in the world of retail or e-commerce, actually, there's a real argument to say data leaders or AI leaders should have financial revenue targets associated with them. Because if I write the algorithm that allows recommendations to work effectively through AI or data or otherwise, I'm suddenly bringing more money into the business.
My name's Mike Lander, and you're listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast, where we bring you actionable insights about sales RFPs, negotiations, and difficult procurement discussions from sales leaders, brand leaders, and procurement leaders. Please subscribe to get updates when new episodes are released. I had such a great conversation with Waseem Ali that I've decided to split it into two shows. So this is part 2, all about AI and the disruption and the opportunity it's going to create for all of us going forward. So listen, enjoy, and hope you learn lots from this second part.
The other bit that I just want to talk about is around AI will solve all problems and come up with a solution that's 100%.
And it's smarter than all of us. It's smarter than all of us. So you don't need consultants. We'll wipe all them out. You don't need middle managers. You can wipe all them out. So talk to that.
AI is only as good as the data that it's trained on, right? So what we call large language models, there are smaller language models and so on and so forth. But what you need to understand, and this has existed again for years, garbage in, garbage out, right? So even in analytics, right? If your data's rubbish, your output, you can create the best possible visualizations, but your output will be meaningless because your data is meaningless.
So just pause there a second, Waseem. So because I think this is I think it's an important point, which is, there is a bit of a myth that says, well, because it's a language model, I can just point at my data warehouse and it'll work out what to do. And it'll work out how to solve this problem using an LLM, augmenting it with my own data, and it'll come out with even richer insights. So what's the problem with that very high level idea?
It needs to be trained. So that these models need to be trained, and even agents in a simplest format needs to be trained, right? So even at Lloyd's of London, we created data science models and machine learning models to train the models that we put in place to read insurance policies as an example, right? And when we first started, we started off with, let's use the analogy of a human being. We started off with a baby. The model was a baby. We trained it. It became a toddler. We trained it. It became a teenager. Then it became a blah, blah, blah. It would never get to the point of being 100% accurate because insurance policies would evolve. New risks around cyber would come into play. It has to be trained and evolved in order for it to get to that point.
And importantly, it has to know what good looks like. In my world of RFPs and proposals, if you give an LLM 100 proposals and say, there you are, there's the data set of what proposals look like and how to write them. If 50 of those proposals were losers, i.e. you lost the deal, and they were written really badly, unless you tell the LLM that's a bad example, and this over here, the winning ones are a good example, it won't know, will it?
Correct. And also there's isms to that, right? Because an RFP and a proposal in your example could be 100 slides long. So which part?
Exactly.
And in a proposal that would...
Which bits are good?
What parts were good, right? Could one section of it...
And which parts were bad?
Yeah, exactly right. And what parts were bad. So I think it's really important to use that in... And actually, you need people to be able to train we're creating AI agents in our business at the moment, and we're experimenting with clients on it at the moment as well, right? And actually, some of the outputs, unless you take a mentality of we're going to fail the first 6 months of doing this because we need to keep iterating until we get it right. Yeah. Actually, you won't invest in it. Like companies won't invest in it unless they have that mentality in the first place, right? There's tweaks and isms that you won't even think about in your example, right? So you might have won a proposal and got the highest possible scores out of all the vendors that won it.
Yeah.
But you might have scored low on your branding. I don't know. I'm making it up, right? You might
exactly.
Branding.
Yeah.
And in which case you might not win another proposal, which actually weights branding at the highest point.
Exactly.
So it's all about kind of the learning and the training of the model when it comes to kind of this stuff and the enrichment of the data, right? Because some of the stuff
and that's human led, presumably, isn't it? The humans got to decide which bits of this proposal are good, which bits are bad on data questionnaires. One of the problems with AI, I think, when you're answering a very specific set of, like, you've got 100 questions to answer, in a data response as part of your RFP, you can't allow AI to make up the answer because it has to be governed and signed off. So you have to tell the model what it can predict and what it can just extract. That there's a difference.
You're 100% right, but there's also isms of biases in proposals, right? So, and actually, you know what? There's a big thing around AI is not biased, and actually, the computer can't be biased because it's not that. The reality,
but it's inherently biased.
Whoever is writing the agent or the code or the AI model is biased and has inherent bias in it. The data that it's using is filled with bias. I was talking at a Women in AI event recently, and we were talking about healthcare data. And I'm slightly out of date on this, luck, because I haven't been in the healthcare industry for about 10 years. So, but the majority of healthcare data globally was based on male data, so not female data. There's a book been written about this as well, actually. Fascinating book. I'll send you the link, and maybe you can include it in the.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But fascinating. So actually, if you think about a female that goes into a doctor's surgery, let's say, and actually the doctor is getting the diagnosis, and actually the computer, because this has happened for years, says it could be one of these three things. That's based on male data, right? Definitely male data, right? So there's an inherent bias in healthcare data.
Inherent bias, exactly.
So actually, there's of course a bias in it, and I think that's that. In your example of RFPs, right? You might have won an RFP because you're best mates with the person deciding who does it, right?
Exactly. The proposal might be utter garbage,
right.
But you've won,
Yep.
And that I think this is a really, really important topic, Waseem. Is that you have to have humans that understand why, in a proposed example, why did we win? Why did we lose? Which bits of that 100-page document were good quality, which bits were bad. Back in 1998 at KPMG, we had a knowledge practice, and you were kind of appointed as a knowledge practitioner to moderate content. So anything that went into the knowledge store, someone, I was one of them in a particular area, the business, would look at it and read it and go, yes, that bit's good. Yes, it meets our quality standard. No, that bit isn't. We're talking about the same thing, aren't we?
Yeah, so exactly right. In your kind of knowledge store, if you're responding to an RFP as an example, there'll be, I don't know, I'm making this up, right? But there might be 30% to 50% of it, maybe a little bit more, that you can be like, actually, this is okay. I think we can use this in our proposal, right? But there will be half or a little bit less or a little bit more, give or take 10% or whatever, which you need to intervene into and say, right, this isn't tailored to my client's request. This isn't tailored to their budget, and this isn't tailored to their industry or their audience, right? Your role at KPMG with the knowledge base and so on and so forth would have been tailored to, you probably would have looked at something and said, this is a great proposal for insurance, but this is a digital startup. Completely different. So how do we tailor it how do we tailor the language to get it suited for them? So it's a really, really relevant topic. So coming back to the question that you asked around common use cases that we're seeing. So we're working with organizations on projects that are under the generative AI or AI banner, but a lot of the work that we're doing initially is potentially digitizing processes, which existed before the time of generative AI, right? But actually it's under the banner and it's getting a lot. But what we're using generative AI capabilities for is making some of those processes a little bit smarter. So suggesting things that the human can then turn around and be like, that makes sense. Think about when you go onto Amazon, right? And it'll be like, oh, you haven't purchased your dog food or whatever it may be, right? So that intelligent suggestion of things is what we're building into organizations. In some cases, it's basic automation. In some cases, it's basic reporting through standard AI tools that we're building into play with generative AI capabilities. In other cases, we're building agents, and we're doing examples of agents on all of this. But at every step of the process, when we're doing something like this, we've got the business on board, and the business is working with us hand in glove in order to understand some of those isms. So we could train, if we are building an agent, we can train it in the best possible way. And it will, even once we're done with the project, and I'm very transparent with everyone about this, once we're done with the project, doesn't mean that agent's going to live forever, right? You're going to have to train it and develop it and do all of that, which is where training is back to your first question, training is such an important part of all of this, ensuring the business knows how to maintain and run this going forwards as well.
So a lot of my listeners are from kind of mid-market companies, say 30 to 100 people. Obviously, they're all exploring the use of AI in their businesses to be more efficient, to help growth, all the good things we've talked about. how concerned should we be that it doesn't matter which of the foundation models you pick, be it Gemini or be it Claude or be it ChatGPT, and you go on to the Teams version rather than the enterprise version, how concerned should we be about putting client data into those environments on paid models that are meant for teams?
I think it depends on the use case, right? In short, if I was to flip the question, if I was to say generative AI didn't exist, none of these tools existed, how concerned would you be if you put client information into an open forum without the client knowing? Let's say an open forum in terms of discussion, like where people can see what you've got. How concerned?
You'd be massively concerned, wouldn't you? You'd be sued.
Correct. So at the same level, you should be concerned, but you should read what your data is being used for when you put it into these models. Is it being shared for training purposes? Or if you shared something, let's talk about RFPs again, right? So if you turned around and said, I am doing an RFP for company X, and this is the RFP. Can you help me write a response to this question, right? And actually does the whole training, blah, blah, blah. Someone could almost reverse engineer that and say, here's the answer. Can you tell me what RFP it was from? And they will suddenly find out, oh, company X is doing an RFP, or they've got certain problems on the roll that we can go and look at and investigate. So actually, what you need to be able to do is understand how that data is being used, which is why kind of the all-encompassing platforms are quite popular in regulated industries. And I'm talking about the likes of your Microsofts, your Amazons, your so on and so forth, where you're buying a suite of products from them, be it 365 or otherwise, which is all stayed within your environment. That's quite appealing to people because there's almost an element of my data not going to go outside.
So just on that point, Waseem, what I think I'm interpreting what I think I heard you say was, and this isn't an endorsement for anyone, but if you're a Microsoft house as a business and you use Copilot within that environment, it's all in one environment. So you're probably as safe as you were from using their other suite of tools because it's in one environment. Is that broadly what you're saying?
There's going to be isms to it, right? But that's what Microsoft will come back and say, this is what we can do, right? And it will be the same with your Salesforce, the same with your Googles and so on and so forth. If your root of your question is, should people be concerned? Absolutely they should, but concern isn't a bad thing, right? You should be, actually concern is probably the wrong word. You should be knowledgeable is what I would say. So correct. Understand where your data is going, understand what the data is being used for, before making a decision as to whether it's ethically the right thing to do, or not even ethically the right thing to do, whether it's legally the right thing to do.
Legally the right thing to do, or not.
And I think everyone has a part to play in this, whether you're a small business owner or you're a data leader in a big organization, you should play a part in understanding this and being knowledgeable on it. And if you don't have the knowledge, go back to the scenario of would you share that information in an open forum? If the answer is like, oh, I'm not sure, then make sure you do some more reading before you do it would be my advice on that.
Interesting. Let's now just talk finally about Warren Buffett's famous kind of economic moat principle, which I think is a brilliant principle about building a moat around your business, i.e. you need to build a moat that's wide and deep, and the wider it is and the deeper it is, the harder it is for anyone to compete with you. So in the age of AI, how can businesses build an economic moat around their businesses when they're being told that AI is about to replace kind of, human-centric and SaaS businesses?
So I love the moat example, and I love talking about it in the sense of building businesses and stuff as well. And I think my view on AI is when you're thinking about the moat as a way of defense, which is the analogy comes from, right? So it's a defending your business. AI could knock down that moat completely. I don't know if that's the right analogy, but
no, you're right.
People can come into your business or whatever it may, or it can strengthen it to a degree that you suddenly have a massive competitive edge over your competitors.
So let's talk about the strengthening. That's a really, really good point, because I think most people think about, it's going to destroy my business. I can't build a business. As opposed to, how do I use it to strengthen my business and strengthen my moat? Let's focus on that for a minute.
So I think for me, you probably need to take inspiration for whatever you think of these organizations, and your personal view on them is you have to take your knowledge of and inspiration from organizations like your the big Metas and the Amazons of the world in terms of what they're doing with the data in order to create a user experience that's beneficial and how they're using AI to create it, right? So let's talk about Amazon. I've just seen the Amazon delivery van. So shout out to the Amazon delivery person that's just gone past my house. But actually, what do they do really well, right? So they know when I'm going to order dog food, right? Because I order it every 8 weeks. I order some dog food. I order it off Amazon. It's the same order. My dog's 9 years old. I've been ordering the same food for years, right? But they have got the pattern on when Waseem is going to order the same dog food at which point. So it's roughly every 6 to 8 weeks. So actually, what they'll do in the 6 to 8 week period, they will say, there's a reduced price for your dog food, blah, blah, blah. Would you like to order it? And they'll do it through the devices that we've got at home, whether it's your Alexis or whatever it is. But what they've done is they've taken, this is a real strength, right? There's lots of negative. They know, arguably Amazon knows more about me than my mum does, but there's lots of stats around that. But that's a real strength because actually I've come home, there's a notification on my device that says, actually the dog food that you buy is 20% off. Do you want to buy it? All I say is yes. Next day is delivered to my house, right? That's a real competitive advantage over me walking into a pet shop and buying that food, right? And because everyone runs out of time and all of those kind of things. There's a laziness element to this, which we're all going through at the moment, right? But that's a real strength for them as a business. Now let's flip. I've used Amazon as an example. Let's look at retail, right? Why do certain retailers work versus not work? The retailers that are working, in my view, are using digital technology and AI effectively. Let's look at Next as an example, right? Next does very, very well, and it's been acquiring businesses for years in a retail space where businesses are closing. Because what they're doing is they've got a platform where they can surface different brands on their marketplace, right? And if you go in and you buy a jumper, as an example, well, you like this jumper, Waseem. How about you choose this jumper, which is slightly cheaper from this brand or slightly more expensive? Or wouldn't they go really well with those trousers, right? And actually, what AI is enabling you to do is make that stronger, make the connection stronger. There'll be websites out there where you can actually virtually try on the clothes and see how they look on you and all of those kind of things, right? That's the strength element of this, right? And that can be revenue generation. So I wrote a paper a little while ago around the role of a data leader in terms of revenue generation. So data leaders will go into a business. And they'll have targets around regulation, reporting, all of that kind of stuff. In the world of retail or e-commerce, actually, there's a real argument to say data leaders or AI leaders should have financial revenue targets associated with them. Because if I write the algorithm that allows recommendations to work effectively through AI or data or otherwise, I'm suddenly bringing more money into the business at the same time, right? So I think there's strengths there. I've given a couple of examples, but there's real strengths there in people to do it. So, but I'm a data person, so I'm ever the optimist when it comes to this stuff as well. But you need to be knowledgeable and you need to understand where your data is going and how you're using it and how it can benefit your customer at the end of the day as well.
Let's take a different industry and let's try together, just kind of live, thinking through what might happen. So take the consulting industry, the traditional business consulting industry. There's obviously there's the big players, there's the EYs, KPMGs, McKinsey's, Booz, right down to the solo consultant, people like me. What do you so let's take the negative side. What do you think is going to happen with clients using AI instead of consultants? And then B, how can consultancies strengthen their businesses by adopting AI? Unprepared, by the way, listeners. I did not prep Waseem on this at all, so I don't know what's going to come out.
Let's work through it, right? So actually, there may be areas where used effectively. Well, actually, let's step back. So let's look at use cases for consulting. Where do the big players get brought in? There's a big digital transformation happening, and they brought in a big player in order to help run that big digital transformation, as an example.
Because they're really complex.
We've all done it, right? Right? There's always been an argument to say you can build your own team in order to deliver that digital transformation. At the end of the day, the people that sit in those consultancies are humans with a certain expertise and skills, and you can hire those skills. There's always been an argument for that, and some companies at different levels will bring their own people in order to do it.
Great example.
Right? But why do companies use consultancies? Because of the stamp that comes with it potentially, or the guarantee that may come with it, or the accountability that may come with it. Why do people use that? So
the accountability.
Yeah, exactly right. So I think that's actually existed for a while. So is there certain services that consultancies provide that generative AI capabilities could provide? Well, the answer is broadly yes, right? But it's also the same case, and it has been for many, many years, right?
Right.
But also the same case with employees in businesses. So it's the same kind of argument there as well, right? I think consultancies are going to evolve as well to be able to actually provide some of this capability. And I think that what they're going to end up doing is saying, we can build, I don't know, let's use agents because you were talking about agents, a bunch of agents for you that will automate all of these processes so you don't need consultancies to do this going forward. However, you need someone to maintain those agents going forward. Who would you call? You would call consultants. So there's an evolution here in terms of what services are being offered. But I think for big transformations, organizations are still going to need some sort of accountability, guarantee, warranty, whatever you want to call it, where they're going to need to call experts in the field to come in and do it, right?
So let's take that example. So in my world, I do quite a lot of negotiation skills training. There's an argument to say, I like your thread. I think it's clever. It makes perfect sense. There's an argument to say, right, in the old days, so up until recently, what would a client have done? Well, they'd have gone out and bought Getting to Yes as a book. And they'd have read it and said, well, I could probably read this and produce slides and turn it into a training program. Or I could call Mike and he could run it because he's got more insights and more experience and has read hundreds of books. The same's true now. They could say, oh, I'll just get AI and I'll build a negotiation tool and then it'll all be done. Or they could say, Mike, why don't you help us build a negotiation tool? And why don't you maintain that tool? So I think that's an interesting thread, is that our roles will change.
Exactly right. And I think as you were talking there, I was just, the thing that I was thinking about is, let's go to your scenario around you providing training. Why would I come to Mike, or why would I go to a consulting company like ours in order to do this? Is because actually we got experience of doing it wrong enough times.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I talk about failures a lot because I think it's such an important part of growth, but we've done it wrong enough times in order to almost sit there and be like, let's not do that because of this. So if in that training scenario, Mike, in that negotiation training scenario, you could get the book that you mentioned and you can use generative AI to turn it into slides and all of those kind of things. And I could deliver the training, but there could be one participant in there that says, hey, but what happens in this scenario?
Exactly.
You would have the experience because of your background to be able to say, that's really interesting. Let me give you an anecdote of when I did this wrong, blah, 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 blah. And you could position it however you want, right? Whereas if someone had asked me that, because I'm not the master of negotiation as you are, I would have to be that, hold up a second, let me go back onto blah, blah, blah and do it, right? Suddenly the experience is lost, the trust is lost and so on and so forth. So I think the same applies to consulting then. So it's a really good thread to build on, actually.
And that trust thing, just to finish off this topic, there is an element which AI at the moment cannot deliver, which is human-to-human trust.
And even there was few people in our business who use ChatGPT were saying, actually, they always agree with what I say. ChatGPT will always agree with what I say, right? And I pride myself on building teams that challenge me and challenge my thinking, that are smarter than me and so on.
Exactly.
If we go back to the scenario of humans, if I use ChatGPT to do that, ChatGPT thinks everything I do is great. They'll be like, that's a great idea, Waseem. This is the things that there's almost a human to human interaction bit that's a little bit missing there. And that trust element is a bit missing there as well. So I think that's really important.
Exactly right. So Waseem, I'm conscious of your time. Let's just kind of pull this together. What are the kind of three things that you take away from this conversation? If there's a business leader out there, they run a 50-person consultancy, legal firm, agency, and they're on that AI journey, but at the beginning of it, what are the kind of three takeaways?
Be knowledgeable, or be willing to build on your knowledge on AI in general. Recognize that it's not always going to be glass half full and it's not always going to be glass half empty. Be very pragmatic with the use cases. And third, do not underestimate the cultural challenges of rolling out any sort of new technology or whatever it may be. Do not underestimate that. Culture will, and I've seen this enough times, and I've been on the failing end of it enough times to know this, culture will make or break a new technology. It's not only about the technology is what I'm trying to say, right? And culture will absolutely destroy the best technology in the world if you don't get that bit right. So lead from that side. That would maybe not the best 3 points, but that's what's coming to mind, Trey.
Perfect. I think the only thing I would add from this conversation would be around the data. is that don't just naively say, oh, it's AI, it'll work it out. It won't. You have to put effort into identifying the right knowledge assets and then training the model on what is a good knowledge asset and what's a bad knowledge asset.
Spot on. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Waseem, it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah,
Thanks
really
ever so much for joining me.
Thank you for not making it feel like a back and forth interview. You know I'm nervous and stuff like that. I spoke to you about it before. So,
you were brilliant, Waseem.
Thank you.
Because it was like we're in a coffee shop having a chat around a really interesting topic with a really, really knowledgeable person on the other side, which is you. So thank you ever so much for joining me. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. I really appreciate your power, Mike. Thank you.
And where can people find out more about you?
On our website, so on rockborne.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know that you listen to the podcast and stuff as well. So just look up Waseem Ali on LinkedIn, and hopefully you'll see someone that looks a bit younger than me. But you'll see me on LinkedIn. I need to change my picture maybe. But yeah, look me up on LinkedIn, and I love talking about this topic, and I love talking about where I've done it wrong as well. So if you find that you're in the need for a conversation like that, please reach out, and no strings attached. Happy to have a chat with anyone on this.
Thanks for listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast series with your host, Mike Lander. Please subscribe so that you'll catch all the next episodes.